Sorry song.
You're editing this now.
Am I just? Nathan Bender Mark. Alright, Jeff. Intro us in. Into the camera.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This is a review by Nathan and myself. This is the first of many to come, hopefully. It's a little test run. Nathan, tell us your initial thoughts of Aquaman.
I loved it, Jeff. I absolutely loved it. I love the first one. I love this one. I don't know which one I love more.
I was pleasantly surprised by the first one. It was very campy. It went away from the very Snyder, dark Batman vs Superman. But damn, this second one, this was just throw whatever you can at the wall and see what sticks, in my opinion.
Shall we introduce ourselves as indie filmmakers reviewing this? Because we're going to be looking at these movies from a totally different perspective to, say, your traditional film critic. So the way I was looking at Aquaman was just from a directing, editing, production design, standpoint, whereas like surface level details like story, acting, plot, arc, that sort of stuff, that's what all the YouTube critics are really sort of looking at here.
I like to approach things when I review movies is it entertaining to be a movie? First and foremost, I think a movie is there to entertain. And I think this movie entertained. I would definitely recommend watching this movie at the cinemas just to get your face ripped off by the bass. And just the sheer amount of sounds that are just attacking you at every single second. We talked about this when we came out, about a submarine will arise from the water and you're just bombarded with this choir and it's like you don't have a second to rest in this movie. We
describe this as being so much movie, and it is the most movie I've seen all year. I mean, it's everything. I mean, you look at the MCU movies, it's like, okay, Spider-Man's also going to be a high school coming of age sort of movie as well as a superhero movie. Aquaman 2, it's a superhero movie, and it's also Lord of the Rings. And with that comes massive scale. You've got armies fighting each other, the MacGuffin, the Trident.
Spoiler alerts, by the way. This is a spoiler review.
Oh yeah, always spoiler reviews. I'm not going to hold anything back for nothing.
All right, let's start with character. Aquaman himself, the big man.
Jason Momoa's back. Amber Heard's back.
Kinda.
Volko is not back.
A nice little throwaway line. I was looking for him, and then I was like, oh, okay, now he's dead.
Your beloved mentor has died, and you're still wanting to be king. So that's how they freed up the budget for more CGI.
Yeah. Mira's there. She pops her head in every now and then. It's just to be like, yep, I'm still in the movie.
I don't want to go into the behind the scenes of it too much because that's what every other YouTube reviewer talks about. I just want to talk about the movie itself. Yes, it was plagued by all these sort of crazy reshoots, blah, 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 blah. Amber Heard is evil. Johnny Depp's cool, even though he's not. I think a lot of YouTube critics are getting easy brownie points by saying, Amber Heard was terrible in this. And their audience are going, yeah, she's fucking awful.
I don't think she was particularly bad or great. She was just there.
She was there. I mean, as committed as she was in the first one, but all of her lines and scenes got cut.
Yeah, it was kind of obvious that she was put to the background and the focus was made more on his brother Orm and their kind of buddy brother building up on that more than the relationship between Mira and Aquaman, which I thought was a good thing. We seen the Aquaman, the Mira thing, they got happily ever after. The natural way for every second movie is to have more conflict within that relationship, and that just like shits me so much. Like look, Shrek 2, they're having marital problems, any other movie is just like, oh no, they have their happy ending, but the reality is the next one, they're having problems. This one, I'm glad they didn't focus on that. It was more the relationship between, like fixing the relationship between the two brothers, which Patrick Wilson stole the show for me.
Oh, scene stealer. He's got his charisma's through the roof in this, even though he's playing the sort of hard ass. I mean, the easiest thing to say is it's a buddy film, and you think of like the classic buddy pair-ups like Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, Jackie Chan, Chris Tucker, you go back to the OG, Nick Nolte, Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours, or even the new ones, Ryan Reynolds and Josh Brolin in Deadpool 2. You got to have the goofy character, but you also got to have the serious character. In this, you get that, but he is like royalty, and he holds himself in a certain way. This is for the good of Atlantis. Then you got the rock star king in Arthur Curry, doing his thing that way. So like, going back to this being the most movie, it's a buddy film. It's a Lord of the Rings epic. It's huge in scale. It's superhero as well, and got the revenge with Black Manta, Yaya, coming back as the returning
They
character.
didn't really go beyond that, though. He's just like, it's the same plot that he had in the first film. Oh, Aquaman killed my dad, I'm gonna kill him. And he's doing it in the most movie way possible, of the most outrageous plot ever, of just that. So there's the greenhouse gas device, and it's gonna destroy the world. And that was his plan. And
well, shall we talk about superhero movies in general? Because you mentioned you like your superheroes a little bit more serious. You love everything that Snyder did with his superhero films. Man of Steel, classic to you. Batman vs Superman, you loved it. Zack Snyder's Justice League. You know, the 1, 2, 3 punch.
They had their flaws, but I think they nailed the tone of what they wanted. For like Zack Snyder nailed the tone of what he wanted for those films, and they were first and foremost a consistent tone. They were first and foremost like pretty serious characters, and it had comedic moments in it, and I liked that out of a movie. Whereas Aquaman kept bouncing between like a full-on comedy, there was like slapstick in there, and then very serious action moments, and these they glossed. I leaned over you in the cinema over that bit where his house is on fire. That whole sequence was over in 30 seconds, from Black Manta entering the house, stabbing his dad, taking the baby, house on fire,
blood
Aquaman
sacrifice,
yelling, "No!" and Mira in the background screaming.
Where's my son?
That was over so quickly, because I just like, all right, we got to get to the next bit. That we got to quickly establish that there are some kind of stakes in this movie, so we can get back to more over the top CGI getting thrown in your face.
That scene exists in the same movie where there is a journey to the center of the earth buddy comedy where they're being chased by giant grasshoppers.
Yeah.
When people describe this movie as being bipolar, I think that's what they're talking about, you know. But I think the overall look of the film, I think you can have moments of darkness in there without it going from high contrast, desaturated to super saturated, you know, images that way. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for this film to delve deep into the depths of a Zack Snyder sort of look and feel and grim tone.
But just
real quick, you mentioned there was comedy in Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman. I didn't see any. There's like one joke.
Well,
You must be friends with my son. You're wearing a cape.
Yeah. How'd you get it back from the bank? I bought the bank.
Oh, that's. I mean, yeah. That's Zack Snyder's Justice League. Justice League, okay. I think, had a lot of humor in it. I mean, even for the label of Zack Snyder's Justice League, that had some humor in there. That wasn't. I don't think that was studio melding. I think he was actually turning on some humor and some levity in that. But anyway, we're delving down the deep rabbit hole.
Aquaman.
Back to Aquaman, where it belongs. I like my superhero movies like that. Big, bright, loud, Power Rangers, but with a great director's eye behind it. This felt like both these films feel like the Power Rangers movie we never got, and the hard target of superhero action films.
Well, that's it. At the end of the day, if it's its own standalone film, it does its job of being a comic book movie. It is bright. There's lots of campy stuff going on. There's Jason Momoa is charismatic as anything. He's having a great time on screen, and Patrick Wilson is having a good time playing off him as well. You can see like it works, and it's entertaining throughout. A good movie though, and I think something that icks me a lot with these shared universes is its inconsistency, and the fact is like where's everyone else doing this? If there's this pollution that's destroying the entire planet, Superman would surely like pop his head in and just be like,
I'll clean that up in a second.
Does anyone know what's going on here? Because the world's kind of ending. Or even Batman, he had a couple of cut cameos. I know we're not talking about behind the scenes stuff, but it would make sense that Batman might check in and be like, you got this sorted? Is this on you, or you want the League? I think what the audiences have been engineered into expecting from superhero movies is a long story arc.
I mean, a lot of people going in
Yeah.
to Aquaman 2, it's like, well, it's not building to anything, so why should I care? People don't care about the individual movie anymore, especially when it comes to superheroes. If it's like a franchise, they want to know if there's an end goal. What's happening in movie 4? There is no movie 4. What I liked about Aquaman and Aquaman 2, it is all self-contained. There are no outside connections. There are no cameos, from all these other people that have this existing cinematic universe, which I'm totally fine with, but everybody else seems to be against.
If you're building a cinematic universe, you need to respect the fact that you're in a cinematic universe. I think it works best when you have your standalone movies focus on your own character. So really build upon that family thing, it's on a personal level. But when every single movie has its own world-destroying plot, it's that's a league thing. That's a shared universe. You're gonna get your other heroes coming in to see what's up. I just can't take my head out of that. I'm just well, Superman would just show up, or Wonder Woman would show up, because it's just natural. It's all over the news. The world's ending. There's fires everywhere. It's there's no Superman. He's just chilling at home, being Aquaman's probably got this. I
think there's a lot more news in the DCEU than there is the MCU. There always seems to be something on the news that our heroes are really concerned about. There's always a shot of them just looking off at a TV screen, there's murders and deaths, blah, 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 blah. Then they have to...
But you look at, let's say, The Winter Soldier, right? I don't think that had a worldwide domination plot. And it was contained only Steve Rogers. It was on a personal level that he had with Bucky, and that was the heart of that film, and that's what made it way more interesting, that he's fighting his friend. It was this spy thriller that was self-contained to that. It wasn't aliens attacking and only Steve is fighting these aliens, and that's what it felt like here. Whereas I felt like they should have dialed it back a lot, maybe kept it. Well, I guess most of the movie was underwater, but have it more Atlantis focused, maybe, rather than it just being a world-ending plot. Maybe Orm was just trying to destroy Atlantis. The whole world destroying plot was just a little bit too much.
Well, I think from a business standpoint, when A Winter Soldier came out, what year was that? 20...
I was 2011, 12?
Something like that. The DCEU hadn't been fully established yet. Maybe Man of Steel had come out, and Aquaman came out in 2018. By then, we've already had 2 Avengers films. Aquaman is now competing with that. One superhero against a fully formed team of superheroes. I don't think a origin story could compete with a superhero team that those superhero team movies always do deal with world-ending threats. So I think, I don't think people would show up for Aquaman learning the ropes, learning how to swim, learning how he got his trident, when the MCU have already fully formed and already tackling. They started on the back foot. So I think
that was their
Aquaman
problem.
has
A lot
to
of
be
people
big.
are saying, though, that that's the issue. You try to jump the gun. So you instantly go straight to the Justice League. You've had the Batman v Superman team up. Everyone's like, why aren't we getting a Man of Steel 2 or a Batman Origin before we get in Batman versus Superman? Playing catch up. And, people say that was the fall of the DCEU. That was the start because they kept just trying to jump the gun. I don't know. I feel like you should have just let Zack Snyder finish what he was doing. Whether you like it or not, just if you start something, just finish it. It feels so strange to go out with this movie because of this movie.
If it goes out, if it makes $800 million, we're going to see Aquaman 3.
It's done. James Gunn is...
I reckon there's going to be an Aquaman 3 just to fuck James Gunn.
I am just look, it's time for it to die. There's too much creative differences as a whole. I don't know, maybe you can have an Elseworlds movie. You can do an Aquaman 3 as its own contained thing, Matt Reeves' the Batman.
Yeah.
If there's an audience for it. I don't know, maybe I don't think the ego of James Gunn will allow that to happen. Yeah.
What I will say to wrap up the overview of the DCEU, because we've gotten on a tangent here.
Yeah, we have.
What I do like about starting with Batman vs Superman and Justice League each of the spin-off or the alone characters have to come up with a story of introducing the character without doing an origin. The Flash did it, Aquaman did it. It didn't start at the beginning of their journey. They have to do it with flashbacks or recreating what gave Barry Allen his superpowers with somebody else. I thought that was brilliant. You don't have to go from like square one with like Iron Man building his suit or Captain America having his serum. That's what I thought was a great starting point. Starting with Batman vs Superman and all the lead characters already in. And what I did like about Batman vs Superman being so polarizing and so dark, and Warner Brothers kick-starting, this has to be more family friendly, is that we did get James Wan's version of Aquaman, which would not have happened had Batman vs Superman been successful. It would have continued on being that dark, dreary sort of, high contrast, low saturation look, and they'd have to follow in those sort of footsteps, which I'm fine them deviating from. But anyway, let's do a quick plot outline of Aquaman 2, Lost Kingdom, and just stay on Aquaman 2, Lost Kingdom.
Man, there's just so much crap that was happening all the time. I didn't even know if there was that much for a plot. Just same baddie, Black Manta wants to kill Aquaman, and Aquaman has to recruit his brother who's in prison, because he's the only man that can find him. They team up. They go see Martin Short, who's this Jabba the Hutt sort of thing. They had a cantina underwater Star Wars scene, which I thought was pretty neat. I thought I got to give it to them. They knew what kind of movie they were making, and they just went with it.
They went
just
nuts with it.
every idea. They're like, yeah, no, that's good. Put it in there. Let's get Gimli as the Crab Man.
The Crab King.
The Crab King.
The Brine King. He was so good. I wanted more from him when he came in. His one-liners, his zingers, that was like the comedy gold.
That's where I feel like you can have your serious-esque characters like your Aquaman and your Orms. They're dealing with some serious crap going on. It's the end of the world. Your kid's just being kidnapped. All this. You shouldn't be quipping jokes, man. This is like a serious time. Your dad's like barely surviving.
But Brine King can talk that shit.
The Brine King,
he's at the bottom of the sea.
He can crack all the jokes he wants. He's got all these views on the world that are just different and fun to play with. He should be the comedic relief,
Oh man, I mean, you asked me, it's like, is that the guy who does Gimli? I said, yeah, can't you hear it in his voice? He's even Scottish.
Yeah.
I will be dead before I see the ring in the hands of an elf. Boy, he really doesn't like you,
my claws.
But yeah, the movie starts with Aquaman. He's got a kid with Mera. He's king of Atlantis. We discover that there's a high council who shoots down every idea that he has to be a super good king. And what's his name? Manta, David Kane. He says his name 1,000,000 times because I did not hear any character say his name in the first film. He's after this sort of secret mineral called Alacorcum or something like that.
Something, yeah.
Some sort of high...
Some BS name.
Some sort of high quality mineral that is...
Vibranium,
unobtainium.
Yeah.
That's like super bad for the planet. They need it to fuel their ancient machines that they found at the start of the film.
Which they just can use that are thousands, if not millions of years old, they said, buried deep in the ice.
Oh, fake Jim from The Office retrofitted.
Fake Jim was like, I just needed a moment to just retrofit them. Where,
he did that in 5 months. He did that in 5 months.
I didn't see any tools around him.
How big was that ship, though?
Yeah.
On the bridge, they've got the big sonic boom generator behind them and a huge sort of...
I did like that design, though.
That was great.
It was very old school Star Trek kind of big buttons that have like real lights flickered through it.
Some film critics were saying we didn't see enough James Wan here because there was not enough scary stuff. If you pay attention to his production company, it's called Atomic Monster. You can tell he's a huge fan of those 50s sci-fis just by looking at the bridge of this old... Everything looks like sort of that steampunk. They've got these huge nozzle levers that activate shit. And even the sonic boom generator had like 2 baubles there those sort of zigzaggy pillars.
Very
you know.
like Metropolis 1927
Yeah,
kind of.
you know. It wouldn't be out of place seeing Frankenstein being birthed on that thing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what's driving the ship. And even the laser guns that they had, I said they looked like little Lego laser guns because they had the big, looks like a bullhorn there and the zigzaggy thing.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
Even the costumes were all leather and had that sort of, you know, wore those sort of like skin caps. It was very retro feeling, very 50s sci-fi, which I thought was super cool. And that aesthetic, totally different to the aesthetic of the first Aquaman movie.
But then the sonic gun.
The sonic gun.
About the sonic gun that just keeps the movie going from ending.
Keeps the plot from wrapping
keeps going.
up.
Oh, Aquaman's about to do it. Oh, no, bring out the sonic gun. That'll
cannon.
slow him down for us to escape and try again.
The sonic cannon that disrupts their mind, they used it 2 or 3 times.
Let's get out of trouble.
I got fed up with that sonic
much.
cannon. I think it's there as a plot device, but I was getting fed up with it. I wanted Aquaman to punch the shit out of that. And to beat the sonic cannon, they used their own sonic
Jesus
cannon.
Christ.
What did you say? A sonic blocker to block a sonic blocker?
Just be a bigger sonic thing. Aquaman was like, I got this idea. I figured
Water
it
science.
out. Just more Sonic at the Sonic. If we have more Sonic than they have Sonic, then we beat their Sonic. And everyone's like, yeah, cool, let's go with that. And then they got a shitload of whales had to scream at them, and then it blew up the ship. It's like,
they used all the dolphin sonar
why
and the
not?
whales
Why
and
not
the
at this
killer whales.
point? I feel like they went over the top with everything else up until that point just so they could sell that part of the movie where you just be like, sure, why not?
Yeah,
that happens.
They had to call back Aquaman doing his trident thingy and summoning all the marine life because he hadn't done that yet. But if he's doing that, why not bring up the trench?
Yeah.
Why not bring up the Karathan, the biggest kaiju? That'd wipe it out. That is your ultimate
What did happen?
ghost army from
There was
Return of the
that
King.
monster that was grabbing dudes
Yeah.
at the start. What happened to that? That just went nowhere. I just realized.
Oh, that's the thing that grabbed King Nereus at the end.
Oh,
You know,
remember.
it looked like that. It looked like the leeches out of King Kong,
Right.
but with the Dr. Octopus arms on it. And we only ever saw it right at the start in tentacle form, and right at the end when it grabbed King Nereus, Dolph Lundgren, who was great in the movie. I love Dolph Lundgren. But where were we on the plot? Okay.
What plot?
They've got to... Yeah, who gives a shit about plot? We're just there for the action.
All right, well, let's talk about the action, because you said you actually liked this better than the first one.
I didn't know if I liked it better. I'm on the fence about it, because it's still fresh.
Okay.
Aquaman 1 has been around since 2018. So it's 5 years later. I've seen Aquaman 1 about 50 times. And I've only seen Aquaman 2 once.
When I was a kid, I used to rewatch certain scenes from movies. I'm like, if they had an epic action scene, that made the movie worth rewatching to me, and I watched that. Like, there's the Pirates of the Caribbean, and they're fighting on the wheel. I thought that was the greatest action scene ever. And it was like unique. It grabbed me, and it's like memorable. I'm remembering it now. And I don't think Aquaman 2 had enough of those scenes. Like, they had...
I will agree with you on that one.
The hand-to-hand stuff was cool, but it didn't last long. The Orm and Aquaman versus Manta scene was cool.
Man.
And I'm like, here we go. They're doing cool moves.
I wanted that
and they're
6
saving
minutes.
each other.
It was on
and
there
then it
for
was
like
just over, and then it stopped.
20 seconds.
And it's like, okay. And then you had the final battle, which looked very CGI. I don't know if it was or not. Or they might have had one of those 360 cam things and had sped it up. And
I'm sure it was all motion capture from the stunties.
it looked good.
As well.
But it just wasn't enough. Whereas I feel the first Aqua movie had a lot more memorable moments. You had the scene on the rooftop, which I thought was kind of cool.
That's probably the best
running through
best
walls
scene in the movie.
On the top. Then you had the final fight between Orm and it's lit well. It's on the surface. And it's very personal.
The submarine fight at the start of the movie was also very good. Permission to come aboard.
Oh, that was the worst line. I was watching that the other day. I was like, damn. I guess you can get away with anything.
That's the superhero landing, but they covered it. Like, the cliches exist in Aquaman, but I think the direction covered it and took it into something different. Whereas the superhero landing has always been played in the proscenium in the MCU. They just land, boom, straight in the middle of the camera. They look up. And Aquaman 2 lands. His back's facing the camera. Push in, all the way into a tight shot.
I did notice that.
Then he hits him with a line.
I thought he was going to say that in this one. He starts off when he jumps onto the freighter,
sort of
the very same shot. He's doing the... I swear he was going to say, permission to come aboard. But he didn't at that time. I don't think he said anything, did he?
No, he
just turned
didn't.
around and started beating him up.
Yeah, and then we hit
And then
like,
cuts to him playing
action figures
with
being
action
slammed
figures.
together. He's telling the whole story to his kid. They could have taken that a step further because they had the crew members cheering them on, like, yeah, go Aquaman. Because if he's telling the story, he could embellish the facts, especially if he's talking to an infant. He could say, everybody loved me. They was throwing flowers and shit. Like in The Simpsons when Homer's telling the story of the nuclear power plant being invaded and the ninjas attack. And Homer just wipes them all out doing his karate. Because it's from his perspective, you could have made Aquaman really amp up the bravado and the self-love that he has for himself and just like slightly kicking a dude and him flying off or whatever. But they just played it sort of like, right down the middle.
The scenes in that were hitting hard. Like the punches were hitting. Like it was like James Wan
Huge
clearly
impact.
knows how to direct action. But
He does.
They didn't give him, well, he didn't give himself enough of that. He didn't, to really shine in a unique way. Like,
Yeah.
just that 2v1 scene was awesome. I love that they're playing off each other. And like as Manta's about to laser Orm, like Aquaman grabs the back of his head and pulls it up.
Yeah.
And like it's this saving back. I love
That
that.
could have been like, I look at like you mentioned, like you have movies that have great sequences in them, and you'll go back and watch the movie just for that sequence. I think there's a choice to be made. Are you going to make a movie that has one great sequence to be watched over and over and over again, or are you going to make a movie that you watch start to finish over and over and over again? Because
ideally, you want both. You want the build up to those scenes to be impactful as well.
That's
the thing
pretty
is,
hard to do.
With Aquaman 2, everything is just happening all the time. It's just noise. So the unique bits that are there aren't
sort of
standing
lost,
out
yeah.
anyway. Like those two fight scenes don't feel that unique. Whereas
Yeah.
if they built that up a little better, have the introduction, like I think Manta entered in a cool way through the smoke or something, didn't he? In that scene, he kind of walked in.
I said
really,
there was slow motion in the first Aquaman, but in Aquaman 2, Manta hogged it all.
Yeah.
Anytime there was slow motion, Manta had it, which I was fine with. But
really ramp that up though. Like take your time with it. You know. I
They're
like
running out
the
of time.
Matrix Revolutions. There's the slow build up. They're walking towards each other, and then they exchange a few lines, and then the closing of the fist, and then the slow mo running. Like they're savoring this moment, and then as soon as they get to each other, then it's on. It's like
that is a movie where I only watch that piece. The rest of the movie, I don't care for at all.
I know. I reckon it's aged pretty well.
Do you watch Revolutions a lot?
Obviously, the first one's the best. Second one has its kind of real weird, pretentious moments, but there's incredible action scenes. Like there are these set pieces where it's like the freeway fight, and then the motorbike, and the two ghosts fight. Everything's unique, and everything's like that. Has a lot of sequences. Oh, and all the clones coming in, and he does when they all go flying.
A big critique of Aquaman 2: video game graphics. Matrix 2 has video game graphics. Aquaman 2 doesn't. Aquaman 2 graphics, VFX seem pretty solid to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes.
Just
I
the
can
floating heads at the end of the movie that look like reshoots, that's when it looks like, any MCU where Tony Stark's talking in the Aquaman suit, in the Iron Man
in this
suit.
kind of movie, you need an absolute insane amount of CGI, and for the sheer amount.
I don't think there was one shot that wasn't CGI enhanced. Maybe when they're talking with the baby.
So that's why I can forgive it a little bit, because it was like 99% CGI, and it was pretty good most of the time. Sure, in every movie you can be like, oh no, that's fake. That giant butterfly looks fake. It's like, well, it's 100% CGI. But it still fits within its own universe. I feel like the world that they created is consistent, and that's all that kind of matters, I guess, when it comes to CGI, if it just fits the story. People critiquing Aquaman 2's CGI... It's
easy thing to say. Blanket statement. Amber Heard was bad. CGI looked like a video game. It's too long. The DCEU is not a thing anymore. This whole thing is pointless. Those are just the easy things to say to trash the movie. But going back to what's better, having an average movie, a movie you can watch start to finish, or a movie that you can take bits out of. You said it's best to have both. To me, that's The Matrix and, let's say, like Lord of the Rings. But very few other movies you can have that. I feel as though what really dictates the sequel, Aquaman 2, is just how much business the first one did. The first one did $1 billion. So I can only imagine that Warner Brothers just chucking all the money at it. I reckon it would have had, another $50 million on top of it for Aquaman 2. This could have been like one of the most expensive superhero movies ever made, not including all the reshoot money that they pissed away. So they had to make everything bigger and have more set pieces and more action and more CGI. But yeah, I felt a little bit bummed out with some of these action sequences because, you know me, I love a good action sequence. I love a really long action sequence because that makes it memorable. I would have loved to have seen, you've seen what Aquaman's like when he's fighting Orm. What about when they're fighting together? How badass are they? You saw a little bit when they're infiltrating the volcano base. What do you call it? It looked like Goldmember's lair or something like that.
Oh, it was just it was Incredibles.
Incredibles, that's
Incredibles.
Right. Because they
had the
those
same
big mech things.
The mech monster, and it was in a volcano, and it's got a superhero in the volcano.
That's right. It's very much like the Incredibles, but
it was very silly.
When
they got to that island, and there's a friggin' giant butterfly, and then the plants are eating it, and there's these.
That was the journey to the center of the earth moment and the Avatar moment, because that butterfly looked just like No Shadow, the big steed that Avatar rides at the end of the movie. Then it turns into Journey or Mummy Returns, where it's chasing by the grasshoppers and they have to make a bridge.
The explanation is the fuel they've been feeding the volcano accelerated this evolution, radiation within 5 months.
Mutated them in 5 months.
I'm like, okay, why not? Why not? Let's just go with it,
But yeah, I would have loved to seen a big fight scene, Aquaman and Orm versus Manta, and have it carry on for like 6 minutes. Just hand-to-hand stuff. They did maybe 20 seconds of that, then they involved a lot of the props and the big batteries of fuel or the big cranes. What I liked about that fight scene is you're seeing these superheroes use their strength, like grab a chain and whip it around and around with their heads. You didn't really see that a lot in other superhero movies. They're just punching each other. If you've seen Batman Dark Knight Returns animated movie, you see Batman do that a lot. Like he grabs two steamroller wheels and starts beating the crap out of Superman. This was like the first sort of superhero movie where I've seen all that incorporated. And I think a lot of that has to do with James Wan sort of thinking outside the box with, okay, what have we seen? What haven't we seen? What can we put into Aquaman that they haven't seen before? Because, we have seen two guys versus one guy before. But it could have been, Bucky and Captain America versus Iron Man times 100.
Yeah.
And that would have been really, really cool.
Well, their fighting styles would be very similar. They're both trained in the art of the trident,
Yeah,
Bucky, both super strong Atlanteans. Yeah, Bucky
and Cap are swapping the shield. They should have been swapping the trident.
I would have loved to see a scene like that.
That would have been
wild.
wild.
They needed more time there. I don't think the volcano. Even having it set in a volcano, there wasn't even any friggin' lava. Like you could have had a Mustafar scene going on.
Nod, yeah.
Just really ham it up. Like there was missiles flying at the volcano, it was destroying the volcano. But they're just skedaddling at that point. Just have that happening at the same time. So it's like, oh no, the volcano's becoming unstable now, and there's lava shooting there, and they're dodging lava while also fighting. And I don't know, maybe it's making Aquaman and Orm weaker because it's drying up the water in the air, kind of, Frozone.
There is no water in this air. Now, that volcano scene, that seemed like the end of Act 3 for me. Everything sort of felt like it should have finished there, but usually in most...
Did it finish Antarctica?
Finished in Antarctica. This has the Fast and Furious sort of template to it, where you're building up to a certain point. That point reaches its climax in the normal end of the movie, but a sonic cannon gets in the way and the bad guy escapes, and then you have to do another build. You have to do Act 1, 2, and 3, but in Act 4. So they had to build up another finale, which took them to Antarctica. So basically they get this trident, and the trident is like the ring from Lord of the Rings. what's his name? The evil king needs his trident so he can break out of his
like
frozen
Sauron.
throne, and Sauron needs the ring to become whole again. So that's basically
There
what
was
Aquaman
a
2
scene.
is.
There was a scene almost identical where he's building the trident himself. Right? He's like got the thing, and it was literally felt like it was out of Lord of the Rings. Like he created his own ring then to rule them all, and that was it. He's like, I'm gonna create my own trident.
He does the thing in
Yeah.
front of his army and transforms
Even
them
his
into
armor, I don't know. I don't know about the comics.
Necrons.
If he's a thing in the comics and he looks like that, but holy crap, did
Very
it look like
reminisce.
Sauron?
He had the big high crown that
Yeah.
Sauron has. But I don't know if you're talking about
Just the
influences.
architecture and everything. It looked very Lord of the Rings.
No other critic has mentioned this before, but I think that the story for this is very much Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne, where a frozen king casts out his cursed weapon. In this, it's a trident. In Warcraft, it was a sword called Frostmourne. A human gets possessed by it, and he goes up to the Arctic to break him out. Very similar sort of thing, and it's got a bit of Warhammer in there because I call them Necrons, but Necrons is Warhammer. The Necron Atlanteans, they're all black and green, and their big black citadel that's underground just looks totally out of Mordor. And if you're fine seeing the very obvious, influence of this film, let's break down the influences. What you saw? I saw Lord of the Rings. I saw Warcraft Frozen Throne. Journey to the Center of the Earth.
The
Mummy
Incredibles.
Returns. The Incredibles. You got your standard sort of buddy film.
Yeah.
The first Aquaman, but just on crack.
Yeah.
Aquaman got a sidekick in this one, a Tupu or Topo.
Topo?
The Topo, the little octopus. I thought he was great. All right, that's about all we can say about the plot, story, or whatever. Let's break it down into things that we enjoyed. You first, because you have a shorter list than I, if a list at all.
Pretty colors. I think. Look, you're getting. I think you're getting what you pay for if you go to a cinema to watch this. It is a very expensive movie, so you're getting very expensive CGI and sound design and all that stuff. There's so much happening on screen all the time. It's like watching King Kong versus Godzilla. If you like those movies, you're gonna like this movie. That's what it is. In terms of character development, I don't know, I like Patrick Wilson's Orm's arc, I guess, if you call it an arc. It's just, he wasn't really conflicted in helping him. He sort of helped him, and he only just didn't want to say that he was his brother till the end. That was about the only arc that he had.
That's the only real setup and payoff that was in this movie.
You could also see it coming. He said it twice, don't call me brother.
Don't call
It's
me-
like,
Come on, little brother.
By the end of this movie, he's going to be like, brother,
You
teary-eyed.
can call me brother.
But Patrick Wilson, he was fantastic. He's clearly been working out as hard as he can to compete with Momoa.
He was in the gym this time.
Because, man, James Wan really gave him, he's like, oh, you've been working out, man. Here you go. Here's a nice little lingering shirtless scene for you.
There's a scene where he's being trapped in the desert and they're holding water from him, and when he gets to the ocean, it just rejuvenates him and pumps all this sort of water weight into his muscle, and he just comes out of the water just jacked. Starts messing up all these dudes, and he even gives a fly kick. Like the creatures that were holding him prisoner, those deserter.
That looked awesome.
Great designs.
Yeah, even the things they were riding.
Those
whatever beasts.
Sand crawlers, I called them.
Sand horses were just disgusting, but also super cool. It looked great. I don't know. I've seen people say that CGI kind of sucks. It looked great.
The production design and character design was outstanding in this. The armor, the worlds that they built, the mise-en-scène, just everything that was in frame, I thought looked
it's a comic
outstanding.
book movie. It looks like it's straight out of the page. It's very vibrant. I like that.
They really other critics really sort of discount the amount of design and art that goes into creating all these creatures. I mean, the Necron monsters looked creepy as. The big green eyes, their teeth, there no lips on them, they're pulled way back, just looking scary as hell. And you're getting all this sort of like creative that you're not seeing any of this world building when your main story takes place in New York City. You're just not. So I'm glad the only time we saw civilization in this movie was right at the end. We saw the lighthouse, then everything was worlds we had never seen before.
So,
Are you a fan of James Wan's direction in this? It's all visual.
the way I see it though with these type of movies, how much can you actually have your own fingerprint on this kind of movie? Like a lot of other people saying like, oh, we're missing this James Wan touch from Saw and Insidious and all this kind of stuff. It's like, this is a movie where Warner Brothers executives get way too involved. And I think it really, like, I saw it with Guy Ritchie and Aladdin. I'm like, the only reason I watched the new Aladdin movie is because Guy Ritchie was directing and I'm a big fan. And anyone could have directed that. Apart from maybe 3 or 4 scenes, I wouldn't be able to watch that movie and be like, oh, man, this is so James Wan. You know, I didn't see it as much. That was just me. I guess I wasn't really looking for it, but there was only a couple of scenes that stood out that felt James Wan-y.
Yeah, if you compare, like, you know, his style to be only horror, you're not going to see a lot of horror in Aquaman 2. Just as like, if you're saying like, you don't...
in the first one though, there was these really cool scenes that were quite horrific. The trench, he's diving down, and it was a cool scene. I think that was straight out of the comic as well. That scene of they're all like closing in on him, just even them attacking the boat. That was cool and horrific in its own way. Like, and I guess there was elements of that with the sand people that look kind of gruesome, but it wasn't filmed in a way that played to James Wan's strengths in that kind of horror genre.
But if you saw James Wan's Fast and Furious movie, there's no horror in that. I think he has an action style, but he also has a horror style, much like Sam Raimi has an action style and a horror style.
Yeah.
But if you look at Spider-Man 2, it's like, there's no Evil Dead 2 in that movie, except for the tentacle scene when Doc Ock wakes up in the hospital. Yeah. That is 100% Evil Dead 2, but I don't think you can throw like a full hardcore Conjuring scene right smack bang in the middle of Aquaman 2 with like a nun's hand coming around a painting and charging at the camera and scaring the main character, because there are no real vulnerable characters in Aquaman.
There was some moments. There was the creature grabbing the dude, dragging him away. Like, it's still cliched, but, could have hammed that up a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you could put fake Jim in.
I don't blame James for this. I think it's just the studio is too big. You have to play it ball a little bit. You know
it's a buffet for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody has to enjoy this.
So that's why, when these filmmakers get to that level, they become less unique, in my opinion. I mean, look, we have very conflicting opinions on this as well, but Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Loved it.
Hated it. Again, I only wanted to watch it because Sam Raimi. And I'm like a huge fan. And I thought he can mix his action and horror elements into one great movie. And I just thought, man, this doesn't look like Sam Raimi at all. I mean, there's a few...
You said anybody could have directed that.
Anyone could have... I don't think Marvel needs named directors because it's just the same BS over and over and over, I think. They just need a monkey that they can... slap the name on, like, oh, this one's Sam Raimi, we're going to pull in the same... If that movie was exactly the same, but directed by anyone else and a no-name, would you have enjoyed it the same?
Well, I disagree. I don't think any other director could have directed that movie. I could see the Sam Raimi influence in there. I think a lot of I think he really enjoyed Scarlet Witch more than any other director has. He really took advantage of the crazy mind-bending stuff that she did, the possession and all that sort of... And even the way he moved the camera. You have to compare Multiverse of Madness and Aquaman to every other superhero movie ever made. Not every movie ever made or every one of their movies ever made.
Yeah.
You compare Multiverse of Madness to any other MCU, you will be able to see a difference there.
Yeah.
With the Dutch, with the editing. That's what I really like in the editing. Like, to go on to Multiverse of Madness real quick, when the big Darkhold book is destroyed, we get to see Scarlet Witch fall down in one universe and then fall down the other universe. They're just matching the framing the whole way through. And it's completely Dutched. She's vertical that way. And I've never seen anything like that in the MCU, ever. And the same with James Wan. I don't think... In Aquaman 2, I think no one's going to choose his colour scheme. No one's going to have his design elements. I really think like James Wan and Sam Raimi, I think they mirror each other a fair bit. Start out in horror, then jumped into big action spectacle. There's even a scene in Aquaman 2 where Manta's trying to get away. He destroys like an underwater train. And it's just like, you have a train to catch. I really wanted that line to come in there just to really hammer home, okay, these guys are on a similar sort of path here. But what about the music? What do you think about the music, matey?
Again, generic. It wasn't bad. Like, they paid for an orchestra, but whoever was directing the music,
Rupert Gregson Williams.
Never heard of him, but it was very operatic, orchestral.
He used a lot of choir.
Made everything sound epic, but there wasn't any scene. I couldn't hum to you anything from that movie.
Even with me whistling it on the drive home.
I go on. What is it?
Dun, 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 dun.
If I like to play the theme song game, right? If I played up, I have no clue.
You wouldn't get it?
Is.
Well,
it wasn't unique enough. It wasn't powerful enough. They wasn't using it to really enhance anything in the movie.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I mean, I thought they used a lot of the themes from the first movie carried over into this one. So when Black Manta shows up, his theme shows up. That sort of heavy distortion. And when Orm shows up, bum, bum, bum. And when Aquaman shows up, it's that guitar. And even Mira's theme shows up a little bit. I thought it was just taking what worked in the first Aquaman and revving it up. It had that sort of
remember the music in the first
piano
one.
In that one.
I don't remember not liking the music in the first one. But again, it's like this one, I don't know, it just felt generic. It was like, let's pay a guy, create orchestral hero music. And I didn't hate it, but also, I don't know, I didn't love it either. Like, there's a lot of movies I'm like, it's really enhanced by the music, and it is so distinctly that movie. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, you just hum that, people are like, Pirates of the Caribbean, that's what it is.
Or Gladiator.
Very similar to Gladiator. Well, Hans Zimmer, he's like, oh, I could have gone a bit further with this one. No one will notice.
Let's speed it up. No one will notice. No one remembers Gladiator. That happened, what, 2 years before? 1 year?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the music had a chance.
Even the Avengers, you know, like, I used
Silvestri,
to mock the MCU a lot, the music of it, because I'm like, there's nothing unique, apart from maybe Iron Man. That had just one little riff. That was his own. And then the Avengers, and then Alan Silvestri.
The Man, Back to the Future, Predator.
Forrest
Gump, we can name them all.
He just came in with a very recognizable tune that was very heroic, and they had these moments, you know, the most famous moment in Endgame, he's like, assemble. But
remember with that moment, he says assemble, and there's not many other sound effects there. The Aquaman 2, the sound didn't stop. There was
that was my problem.
Something.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. A friggin' submarine pops out of the ocean. It's just this real wide shot, and it's slow-mo, and it's wrapping around. Choir. I was like, just give me a second,
give me a minute.
just give me a little,
that's
little break.
A problem overall with movies these days. They don't know how to shut up.
Yeah.
What makes your Avengers that work, or like Return of the King, your favourite scene, the lighting of the beacons. When that's happening, no one's fucking talking. In Aquaman 2, whenever there's like a bit of quiet, there's probably some sort of exposition going on in the background. She has superpowers and got the big evil trident. They're talking while the music... There's no room to breathe at all in movies these days. I think movies don't know how to shut up anymore. So that's what needs to sort of come back. You know, Batman 89, he gets in the car and drives Vicky Vale to the Batcave. She says, where are we going? And that is it. And then you just let the music sort of take over. I mean, you know, it needs to be a more of a freedom to be able to do that. And maybe it is that of Warner Brothers thing. And because they're trying to jam-pack so much into this story, they have to have characters talking non-stop. You can't have moments.
Yeah.
How do you think they use the actual written songs in this one? Because there's only a couple. Spirit in the Sky and Born to Be Wild.
How many times did they play Spirit in the Sky? Was it twice?
Twice. Born to Be Wild was twice.
Too many. Like,
Is there no other song we could use?
It's got a transitional riff that's good from like scene to scene. Like it kicks in and then it transitions to the next scene. But then it's like, why is this song here? It's like, it's not about the spirit in the sky. Like, it's set underwater. They used it twice.
Well, they can't really sing
I guess
under the sea.
they're appealing to that kind of dad crowd as well, you know.
Yeah. Very, very much a dad two-hit soundtrack of Born to Be Wild and Spirit in the Sky.
Yeah.
But what other song could you have chucked in there? You know, it works. It's groovy.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, just have an original kind of guitar riff that's...
The original Aquaman used a song by Greta Van Fleet, Safari song. That was a strong guitar riff that transitioned into the underwater. But, you know, I guess they couldn't have any other budget for many more songs in this.
Am I imagining this? Did they play Sabotage in the first Aquaman film?
No, they didn't. We predicted that was going to happen with the Sonic thing.
I was like, surely they're going to play Sabotage?
So they're going to write a song?
Wow, they're just ripping through all this water crap.
They couldn't. It'd be too much like Star Trek Beyond.
Didn't James Wan direct? No, that was
Justin
Lin.
That's the other Fast and Furious guy, Justin Lin.
Going back, you said the positives, and we should get to your positives in all this point. I think it's just the charisma of Jason Momoa, which...
Did not seem checked out to me.
I wouldn't really... No, he looked
seemed
like
as committed as any other film.
It's just strange. I feel like the tones of each Orm and Aquaman should have been reversed. Like I feel like the superhero lead, should be a little bit more serious. Like Aquaman is just quipping jokes left, right, and center.
Well, then
there's all these very serious moments, and he's just like, "Yeah, bro. Oh man, that was
have
crazy,
a greasy
bro.
cheeseburger and a can of Guinness."
Yeah.
Well, if you do the other way, then you get Thor: Dark World, and that's just not fun at all.
Yeah.
Are there any other comparisons where you get the main characters, the serious one?
You don't want to go Love and Thunder though.
No, you don't.
Ragnarok
that was
is probably the sweet spot.
Yeah, I guess so. That is a sweet spot. Love and Thunder is everybody was the comedic relief, and when everybody's funny, no one is. I don't think I should talk about the highlights because I loved all the highlights. I should talk about the stuff that I didn't like.
Because you're a simp to Aquaman.
Simp for this version of Aquaman. I did not like Aquaman in any other way, shape, or form or media. I thought, we talked about Zack Snyder's casting. I was like, when you heard that Momoa had been cast as Aquaman, that was a huge shock.
Before he was properly announced and these rumours were going around, he came to Australia for Comic-Con and I dressed as Aquaman. I was with Mira and an Aqualad and got a photo with him.
Get out of here!
Tried to get him to hold the trident. He wouldn't do it. He was laughing his head off and he was almost like, oh God, because there was all these rumours. He's either Lobo, he's Aquaman. There's big Aquaman rumours.
You should show that photo right now.
If I could find it, I'll put it up. It was a long time ago. I look very different.
Yeah, he looks like he's had a wash and a shave.
Yeah.
That photo could have surfaced. Aquaman confirmed, says young fan.
Like a week before
he whispered into my ear, he's going to be Aquaman.
There was a mirror who made him hold the trident.
Get out of here.
That went viral, and he just had this look on his face like, oh, I
can't do this.
I'm not going to hold a trident again. And then he was. So, whatever. I was right.
It was... I think, say what you will about Zack Snyder's direction, his casting is outstanding. I love how he cast, except for Rebel Moon, which sucked.
That's another video.
His casting for the DCEU was spot on. I mean, I love that we got a non-Caucasian Aquaman with blonde hair, blue eyes.
With a few exceptions, I reckon. Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
he was like a Joker character. That really annoyed me. The whole... I'm getting off on a tangent here. But anyway, there's Lex Luthor I didn't like. Maybe that was about it. But that was like such a bad way of making that character.
Well, you know, it was like he cast Jason Momoa, but he also cast Amber Heard and he also cast Ezra Miller. Like, did he know that they were psychologically imbalanced?
That aside, I think they did well in the roles that they played. Like, even The Flash... If I didn't know any better, I actually really enjoyed the Flash movie.
I did too.
I think because I it didn't matter at that point. I would have hated it if the Snyder's vision was still a part of something, but because it was just like
It's a one-off.
doesn't matter anymore. I'm just watching it for the entertaining movie that it is. It was entertaining. The CGI in that was terrible. that was bad CGI. And yeah, I don't know.
Suits.
I thought
Why do the suits just have to be full CGI? Didn't we learn our lesson from Green Lantern?
Yeah.
I'm glad that Aquaman got his own sort of flavour and Momoa really brought himself into the character, because how he was in Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, he was just a grouch. He was just a loner grouch, and had we just stuck with that, I thought he was the most uninteresting in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Don't you reckon?
Yeah, I guess so.
He didn't have anything to do, but as soon as he gets his own film, he's playing Jason Momoa as Aquaman, and you get so much character from him as the Aqua Bro, which is like, some people like, some people don't like. I love.
Who would you cast as Aquaman
In the reboot? Who the fuck cares? Who cares? Mate,
I think it would be pretty funny to have, what's his name? Alan Richardson? Is that his name?
Oh, the big fella, yeah.
So he was Aquaman in Smallville.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
So it'll come full circle, because he's huge.
He's jacked.
Now too. He is absolutely massive.
He's on all the human growth hormones.
And, he's popular now. I mean, I think he's rumoured, well, not...
Is his acting any good, though? Is he charismatic? Or is he just big?
I'm struggling through the Reacher show. It's very dad kind of stuff. And you watch it, though, and it's like, this is kind of how superhero movies are written, just with less CGI. So I can see it. I think he has. There's a lot of fan casting for him to play Batman, and he himself has come out and was like, "I would play Batman." Don't think he has the range enough to play Bruce Wayne and Batman. Same as your bloody mate from the Batman.
Oh, Robert Pattinson.
Pats. He just played the same character.
Oh, we need to do the Batman versus Batman Begins coming soon.
But I don't know, he's got the chin for it. I reckon he'd do good as like an Aquaman, maybe.
An evil Aquaman
bring something else to the table that's not Jason Momoa. Because if you try and replicate that, it's just going to fail.
I mean,
Jason Momoa just oozes charisma.
I think he's put his stamp on Aquaman much as Robert Downey Jr. has put his stamp on Iron Man. I can't see, you get your Tobey Maguires, your Andrew Garfields, your Tom Holland, they bring something new to the table. They're already thinking of ways of bringing Robert Downey Jr. back, because recasting would just kick up such a stink. But my issue is like with casting young characters, I assume they're going back and they would cast a younger Aquaman. Are there any young actors out there that you could see fit the role? I mean, 20 to 35.
We know Tom Holland's getting the role.
He'll do his Spider-Man pose again.
He's the flavour of the week. I can't stand that he's in everything now. He's ruined Uncharted, so why not ruin Aquaman?
My issue is I don't think they're not making stars anymore. Yeah. I mean, when Mortal Kombat 2 was being cast, and they were thinking, Johnny Cage, who's they going to cast? And Johnny Cage, to me, has always been this young, brash, up-and-coming martial artist actor. And names that were being thrown around were, Ryan Reynolds, all the Hollywood Chris's. And it ended up going to Carl Urban, who's closer to 50 than he is to 20. They don't have any young stars anymore. So where the DCE, the DCU goes with James Gunn and his casting should be very interesting, because will they cast young everybody to fit inside that world, and what stars are there out there?
That was probably a prerequisite by Warner Brothers.
They're always going young.
They're like, we want 20 years worth.
Yeah.
So get them young so we can keep it going and milk this as long as we can. I don't think that is a smart way to do things.
No.
I think you should come to the table. You should have 10 movies, maybe, or 8 movies, or 12 movies, or have movies, but you have to have a set number of movies. You have to have a set beginning, middle, and end for these movies, as well as their own movies contain themselves as well, and have a complete story. And that's what annoys me, because Zack Snyder had that. He had a 5-movie arc for Superman, and it's just annoying that I hate incomplete things.
Well, my big issue with is, like, say Zack Snyder gets his 5 movie story arc. What if no one shows up for the first one? Do you still continue on this rabbit hole of loss of profit? But they weren't reviewed very well.
Yeah, but nothing is. You know, nothing these days is reviewed well. The critics are always going to pan it for something. Like you look at, Aquaman's getting rinsed.
It's getting hammered.
Rebel Moon got rinsed. You know,
It's very hard to gauge Rebel Moon though. There's no theatre goers, and Netflix don't release their viewership.
Yeah.
So,
but
on that,
Man of Steel, Batman v Superman were both successes financially.
yes.
And then
800
Aquaman
million
came
worldwide.
not long after, and that was a huge success. Yeah. It wasn't until Justice League is when it...
Shit.
I don't think... Did that
Wait,
make
Justice
a
League
profit?
came out before Aquaman, didn't it? 2018, Justice League came.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But that was the first time that I saw it was actually going downhill. And that annoyed me a lot.
That was the real hit to the Snyderverse. Because we wouldn't have got the Snyder Cut if everything went well in this other universe where
Thank you, pandemic.
if Snyder got to release his version of a theatrical Justice League, it would not have been the Snyder Cut. You know, Steppenwolf would not have looked like he did in the Snyder Cut. We would have got that watered down version. I think everything worked out pretty good because I prefer the Snyder Cut as is, and I would not have liked to have seen Zack Snyder's version of the theatrical cut. It would have straight up been watered down.
Well, Zack Snyder's starting to get a bit of a reputation for... there's a movie that's released, and then there's the Zack Snyder director's cut. You know, it's always 4 hours long. You know, but that's his style. It's like, cool, man.
It's violent and 4 hours long.
We should just wait for the director's cut. He's the only director I know that has that power, though, that he keeps doing it.
Have you looked up his plan for the Snyderverse in his 5 movies?
No.
No. Well,
I've heard some brief stuff about it, and there's some bold choices in there. But I wanted to see it, even if it's crap. I wanted to. He had a vision. Just let him play it out. Like I said, there should be like an insurance when you have a setup for multiple movies.
Yeah, the $100 million.
So instead of like having 3 more movies to end it, you have $100 million as an insurance. If it pans, it's like you get to finish it for the fans. I think Netflix should do that as well. I think it's disgusting how, like, oh, here's 2 seasons of this show. A lot of people love it, but you know what? We're not getting the viewers that we want, so we're just gonna cut it off right
Thanks
there.
for coming. So what I didn't like about Aquaman 2, we are real bad for tangents on this. We really have too much to say about.
This is a test run. Give us your feedback.
What I didn't like about Aquaman 2 is like they didn't get each moment to really sort of play out and shine. Everything felt rushed. You didn't get your iconic fight scene or action sequence. Just like you were saying in the first Aquaman, the battle in Italy was recognisable. The final fight, 1 versus 1, my favourite when movies come to that point at the end with the upturned sea ship. You didn't get that. It just felt... Aquaman 2 was the buffet, and they chucked absolutely everything out there onto the tray. And it was like, you know, the food at a buffet, there's lots of it, it's okay, but there's not one stellar dish that say, you know what, I love that Scotch fillet the best. You know, it's just a whole bunch of little things that make it worth going to see. Speaking of director's cuts, they say James Wan's working on a director's cut of Aquaman 2. Because you can see, like, the ending of it. When they all finish in Antarctica... See you later, little brother. This is going to be great. Blah, blah, blah. You're going to be a good king.
That's where it should have ended.
They finish in the widest of wide shots. The camera's tracking around, and it felt like a Star Wars ending to me. If they had irised clothes on the people on the thing, it would have felt so Star Wars to me, and it felt like the natural conclusion of that movie. But from then, it goes, here's a news break. Aquaman surfaces and declares... Atlantis is a place, and he has his meeting at the front of the United Nations at in front of the Statue of Liberty, standing at a podium doing his thing. Looks so awkward, but it's supposed to because it's the first time we've seen Aquaman with the land dwellers. And he says his spiel, I'm here, I'm the Aquaman, grabs the mic, yoo-hoo!
Yeah.
And then heads out. I think that was like a reshoot. But, maybe in the director's cut, things would be more explained and fleshed out a bit.
just imagine, you know, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman comes out, Zack Snyder's got this huge, epic, you know, universe planned, and the final scene of the DCEU
Is that?
There's Mo going, woohoo, dropping the mic, and that's it, it's dead, it's over. Oh, actually, the final scene is Orm eating a cockroach. That's
On a
the
cheeseburger.
End. That is it. That is the end of the DCEU.
For Snyder writers, yes, that's what it is. But I never liked the Snyderverse to begin with. So I was fine with it ending. But anyway, going off a tangent of how much I don't like
Aquaman.
Aquaman 2.
All right, have we talked enough
I recommend
about Aquaman? All right, out of 10.
Out of 10, this is a solid 8.5. I ranked the first Aquaman 10 out of 10. Yes, I did. How would you rate Aquaman 2 out of 10?
6.2.
6.2?
I think is generous. I think anything above a 5 is worth watching, in my opinion. And 6.2, I think, I like to judge movies on, is it worth recommending to other people? This is one I probably wouldn't recommend to everyone as a general audience thing. I think if you like King Kong movies and Godzilla movies and Fast and Furious movies, you're going to get a kick out of this movie.
It's like the Nickelback of superhero
general
movies.
Audiences,
General rock.
Have a good time, leave the cinema, forget about it. That's what this movie is. You know,
See, I think
it's a holiday from life.
My opinion is extremely biased on Aquaman. And
Same with me with Zack Snyder's
should not be trusted.
Movies, Snyder's DCEU. I'm a big simp for Superman, and you know, I really wanted to see where that was going, and I think Batman v Superman really gets way too much hate than it deserves. It deserves a lot more credit, and if people go back and watch it, I think they'll enjoy it a bit more. If they don't have those kind of goggles on,
it gets too much praise than it deserves.
Oh, right. Anyway, Aquaman 2, it's going down to a 6.1 now, just out of spite.
8.5.
6.2. 6.2. And I can't give it any more than that.
I have to look at it like superheroes movies are for kids, not just for angsty teenagers, not just for Zack Snyder.
I think it can be a range of things. I think Marvel is more aimed at children in like its campiness and its bright colors and its, you know, the world that it's built up. I feel like DC has an opportunity to capitalize on a market that hasn't been touched by Marvel, which is really adult stuff. Like Marvel was scared to touch Blade, you know, because it was too violent. You know, Marvel didn't want to bring Deadpool into the MCU too early because it was like, you can't do that.
Talk about
PG-13.
pussy for 90 minutes.
Yeah, you can't do that without you have to let them go free rein. That's what they should do with DC. Is you have these characters. Batman is.
Which character could you go R-rated with? And do you mean R-rated, or you just mean like scraping the edge of PG-13?
No, I mean like if it serves the story, go proper R-rated or MA for us.
Well, what superheroes could you go R-rated for?
You could do it with Superman as well. Like
Superman R-rated.
He shoots fire out of his eyeballs, man.
Absolutely not. I think the Batman was too dark and too grim. I mean, entry level when you saw Batman for the first time was Batman Begins or whatever. Was that your first Batman?
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw when I was very young, I used to watch the older Batmans that you like creep me the hell out.
The terrible ones.
Yeah.
But you know, look at Batman Begins. That's not just for kids, but everybody can enjoy that. It's not pandering to anybody. I think superhero movies have to be for everybody. Zack Snyder can't work with a low budget. He has to be big, and to be big, you have to be acceptable for everybody. I don't think he could make a movie. He's not like a Michael Bay who can just jump between a $150 million budget to, say, a 20, and his style still comes across. And style in storytelling and violence. I think Zack has used the superheroes just like Michael Bay has used the Transformers as a vessel for his brand of direction.
They're those moments that I like in movies that shock you. Like they didn't have to hold back. There wasn't some executive going, oh no, a kid isn't going to be able to watch this. I've already poured $300 million into this movie. We have to make sure we tap that kid audience. No, there's like, who cares who sees this movie?
Or maybe superhero films aren't for us.
Maybe.
Good night, everybody.